Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Always exciting to dive into something new.
And today we're tackling a topic that I think everyone listening can probably relate to on some level.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Bouncing back from setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And we're using Mervin's story as kind of a guide for this.
Interesting.
He was doing great, independent, had his life on track.
Yeah.
But then he hit a rough patch after a serious relationship went south. And it left him emotionally and financially drained. He totally withdrew from everyone and everything.
Wow.
At his lowest point, his apartment's a mess. He's ignoring his mom's calls, and he feels like a complete failure.
I mean, it's fascinating how his story actually starts in a hopeful place.
Yeah.
Full of promise.
Yeah.
That initial success, I think, makes the fall even more jarring, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what makes this deep dive so powerful, because
Right.
we can all relate to that feeling of optimism, of things going well, and then bam, life throws a curveball.
Yeah.
In Mervin's case, it was this intense relationship that started out strong but took a turn.
Mm-hmm.
The source material really emphasizes that it wasn't just one big event, but a series of smaller setbacks that piled up.
Precisely. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
His partner's job loss created financial strain, which led to tension arguments.
Right.
This slow buildup of stress is key because it highlights a common pitfall.
Okay.
We often underestimate the cumulative impact of seemingly small stressors.
And for Mervin, it was more than just the financial stress.
Yeah.
It was the emotional weight of feeling like his investment in the relationship wasn't valued.
Right.
He was giving it his all thinking. Was it only to see it crumble?
Yeah.
That sense of betrayal of his own judgment failing, that's what really sent him into a spiral.
This is where the psychological concept of cognitive dissonance comes in.
Okay.
When our deeply held beliefs about a person or situation clash with reality, it creates this immense internal conflict. In Mervin's case, his belief in the relationship was shattered, leaving him feeling lost and questioning his own choices.
So we see Mervin at his lowest point. He's isolated, feeling defeated. But this is also where we see the first glimmer of hope.
Okay.
It comes in the form of his mother's persistent calls. He's been ignoring them, but finally something shifts and he picks up the phone.
This seemingly simple act of answering the call represents a crucial turning point.
Yeah.
It signifies a willingness to reconnect, to open himself up to support.
Mm.
Even though he wasn't actively seeking help subconsciously, he was leaving that door open.
And his mom's words during that call are like a lifeline. She says, "You've always been strong. You're not a failure. You can rise again."
Powerful.
It's like she's reminding him of his own resilience, something he'd completely lost sight of.
What's interesting here is the power of external perspective.
Yeah.
Often when we're in the depths of despair, we lose the ability to see ourselves objectively.
Right.
We get trapped in these negative thought patterns.
Mhm.
Someone like Mervin's mother, who knows and loves him unconditionally, can offer a different lens,
Yeah.
a reminder of his inherent strength and potential.
It's almost like she planted a seed of hope. He may not have fully believed it at that moment, but her words stayed with him. And that's what set the stage for his recovery.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about some instant transformation. It's about that first tiny step towards acknowledging the pain and opening himself up to the possibility of healing.
And this is a critical point I think our listeners can relate to. Sometimes the most difficult step is simply admitting you need help, even if it's just from someone you trust.
Right.
It takes courage to be vulnerable, but it's often the catalyst for positive change.
So we've seen Mervin's fall, the buildup of stress, the emotional turmoil, and finally that glimmer of hope with his mom's call. But this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
He's taken that first step, acknowledged the pain. Now he needs a plan, a way to start climbing back up. And that's where the source material gets really interesting. It lays out 5 specific steps that Mervin took to rebuild his life.
These steps are practical, actionable, and backed by a growing body of research on resilience. They offer a roadmap, not just for Mervin, but for anyone facing a setback, regardless of the specifics of their situation.
Yeah.
So let's dive into those steps and see what we can learn from Mervin's journey.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so the first step in Mervin's recovery is all about actively confronting his pain. But it's not about wallowing. The source material details how Mervin started journaling. He didn't just list his problems, though. He dug deep into the why behind his emotions.
Okay, but wouldn't that just make him feel worse? I mean, sometimes I avoid thinking about the tough stuff because it's just too painful.
That's a natural instinct. But research actually shows the opposite can be true. There's a study from UCLA published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that found expressive writing about emotional upheaval leads to significant improvements in mental and even physical health over time.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's not just about venting, it's about really processing those emotions. But Mervin didn't stop there, right? He also started reaching out to people.
Exactly. He reconnected with his mom, of course, but he also started having coffee with old friends. The source material emphasizes that he didn't initially dive into deep conversations about his problems. It was more about those casual interactions that reminded him he wasn't alone.
See, that's where I struggle. Reaching out when I'm down feels weak somehow. Is that common?
It's incredibly common. We have this societal idea that we should be self-sufficient, that asking for help is a sign of failure. But vulnerability is actually a key component of resilience. Dr. Brene Brown, a leading researcher on vulnerability, has found that people who are willing to be open about their struggles build stronger connections and cope better with stress.
Okay, that makes sense. So Mervin's got his emotions somewhat under control. He's rebuilding his social network,
Yeah.
but his financial situation is still a mess. How did he tackle that?
This is where Mervin's story highlights the importance of taking action even when it feels overwhelming. He used a specific strategy called debt snowballing to pay down his debts. He listed everything he owed, prioritized the smallest debts, and focused on knocking those out first.
But wouldn't it make more sense to focus on the debt with the highest interest rate?
Logically, yes. But the debt snowball method is powerful because it leverages the psychology of small wins. Each time Mervin paid off a debt, no matter how small, it reinforced his sense of control and motivated him to keep going. There's a fascinating study by Teresa Immobile, a professor at Harvard Business School, which found that even small progress towards a goal can significantly boost happiness and productivity.
So it's not just about the math, it's about the emotional boost from those small victories. And that ties directly into the next step, right? Rebuilding confidence.
Precisely. As Mervin gained control over his finances, he also started focusing on small daily improvements in other areas of his life. The source material mentions he established a consistent wake-up time, started eating healthier, and made time for a walk each day.
Hold on, those seem really basic. How did that rebuild his confidence?
It's all about the power of habit formation. When we establish positive habits, we create a sense of structure and control in our lives. A 2018 study in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that it takes on average 66 days to form a new habit. Mervin's commitment to those daily actions, even when he didn't feel like it helped rewire his brain for success.
Okay, I see the connection now. It's like those small actions create a sense of momentum, proving to himself that he could follow through on something. But there's one more step, right? Finding his passion again.
This is where Mervin's story takes a turn that I find incredibly inspiring. He dusted off his old guitar, which he hadn't touched in months, and started playing again. He also joined a local fitness group, something he'd always enjoyed but let slide.
So it's about more than just getting back on your feet, practically. It's about finding that spark, that thing that makes you feel alive again.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be some grand passion project. It's about reconnecting with activities that bring you joy, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. Mervin's experience highlights the critical role of intrinsic motivation in building long-term resilience.
Yeah.
When we do things we genuinely enjoy, we're more likely to stick with them, even when things get tough.
So we've seen how Mervin tackled the practical stuff, finances and habits.
Right.
But it's this rediscovering of his passion for music and fitness that feels like the real turning point.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
absolutely. It's like all the previous steps, confronting the pain, reaching out, taking control. They built the foundation. But this is where Mervin starts to truly thrive again.
It makes me think about those times I've been stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
I try to power through, be disciplined, but it felt joyless, like I was just going through the motions.
That's such a great point. And it highlights something crucial that often gets overlooked in discussions about resilience. It's not just about gritting your teeth and pushing through.
Yeah.
It's about tapping into that internal source of motivation
Yeah.
that comes from doing things that genuinely light you up.
Makes me wonder if those two sides are connected. Like maybe when you have that passion, the discipline comes easier.
There's actually research that backs that up.
Really?
A study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found a strong correlation between pursuing intrinsically motivating activities and increased self-discipline in other areas of life.
Interesting.
It's like those positive emotions spill over and create a virtuous cycle.
Okay, this is blowing my mind. So Mervin's story isn't just some feel-good anecdote.
Right.
It's a blueprint backed by real science for how to bounce back from tough times.
Exactly. And what's particularly inspiring about his journey is that it shows how resilience isn't some innate trait you either have or you don't.
Yeah.
It's a set of skills that can be learned and practiced.
So for anyone listening who might be in the middle of their own fall,
hmm
what's the one key takeaway they should hold on to?
I'd say it's this: falling down is inevitable, but staying down is a choice. Mervin's story shows us that we all have the capacity to rise again, even when it feels impossible.
He didn't have some magical advantage. He just took those steps one at a time, acknowledging the pain, reaching out for support, taking control of what he could, building confidence through small wins, and rediscovering what brought him joy.
And it wasn't always easy, I'm sure. But by focusing on those key areas, Mervin shifted from feeling helpless to empowered, from overwhelmed to hopeful.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Mervin's journey, we want to leave you with this question. What small step can you take today to start your own climb back up?
Even if it's just writing down one thing you're grateful for, texting a friend, or spending 5 minutes doing something you love, that first step matters. Remember, you are stronger than you think, and you are not alone.